In 2026, the World Cup is going to have 48 teams for the first time. I actually think that this is a very good thing, and the rest of this video is why. It's important, though, to separate this from 3-team groups. See, they initially said they were going to have 3-team groups, but on December 4th, ESPN wrote this article, and so did everybody else in the universe, about how Arsene Wenger, who's on some committee of FIFA that does something fairly important and makes this decision, said they haven't decided whether it's going to be 3 or 4-team groups. So take that and throw it out the window. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the inclusion of 16 more teams at the World Cup and why that's cool. Now look, I have a healthy hatred of FIFA, a natural hatred of FIFA, because FIFA sucks. Gianni Infantino looks like a poor man's Gru, and they've got their slimy fingers like all over the game. But the World Cup's actually expanded a fair amount. The World Cup actually varied regularly. There was a different number of matches played at every one of the first 6 World Cups. Ever. Actually, every one of the first 7. And then the World Cup stayed the same for 3 times. Then in 1982, it expanded from 16 to 24 teams. And in 1982, there were only 109 teams attempting to qualify, and there were 24 spots at the World Cup. I mean, that's like, I suck at math, but we're talking about an over 20% qualification rate there. Then the World Cup expanded again in 1998 after playing just 4 tournaments at that size. And in 1998, there were now 174 teams attempting to qualify for the World Cup, so the expansion to 32 teams was warranted. And now in 2022, there are over 200 teams attempting to qualify for the World Cup, and because of the globalization of everything, the quality of each team is definitely better. And as I still suck at math, the ratio of the number of teams attempting to qualify and the number of teams actually getting into the tournament with 48 teams is pretty similar to what was going on back in 1982. So this isn't some dramatic change from the start. And while it is obviously a money grab, because FIFA only thinks about things in terms of money, they're going to not harm the game as much as they normally do with a money grab, and we will get to watch more matches. But that's reason number 1, it does not suck. This doesn't change much. Reason number 2, it doesn't suck, is you might be sitting there like, you freaking idiot! They're letting in like the worst teams in the world. They're not, actually. Upping it 16 more teams doesn't really lower the level of quality in the tournament much at all. Let's start with Europe. Europe gets 3 more spots and goes from 13 to 16. The 3 European teams that would have made it: Sweden, Ukraine, and North Macedonia, because Italy still wouldn't make it. Mamma mia, you know? Sometimes you're the pasta and sometimes you're the boiling water. But really, 3 more teams. We've got the 3 playoff finalists. Those are the 3 teams that would have made it. And honestly, Sweden made the freaking quarterfinals of the last World Cup. Ukraine's plenty good. North Macedonia beat Italy. They deserve to be there. Next is Asia, which actually would only get 2 more automatic teams than it had at this World Cup. Qatar made it automatically as the host. Australia made it through the playoffs. So those 2 extra teams are the UAE and Oman. Now, I can feel you judging me. You're looking at me like, don't you know those teams suck? But the UAE only lost to Australia on an 82nd minute scramble type goal to get knocked out in the playoffs, and Oman finished 1 point behind Australia in World Cup qualifying. Remind you, a team that beat Denmark, scored against France, and made it to the World Cup knockouts, and made Argentina nervous, who's in the final as of this recording. They could have already won, in which case Messi stands in the comments. I'll see you there. Oman even beat Japan in Japan. Germany isn't doing that, or Spain. I mean, really, the only thing that beats Japan is a penalty. Those things scare me, man. I look at them and they scare me. Africa gets 4 more teams, and that's pretty easy to figure out because Africa has like a 10-team playoff to get into the World Cup to begin with. And those 4 teams, well, they're pretty freaking good. Algeria, who are really good, Egypt, Mo Salah, and Nigeria, who they missed their World Cup for the first time in 6 attempts. I think all those teams could totally win. The other team is Mali, and I say them last because they don't have the name brand value, but they also dominated Tunisia in a losing effort during the World Cup playoff thing. Mali's very good. They've never been to a World Cup, so this is a cool chance for them to go if they can do this again. South America gets to add 2 teams, and those 2 teams would be Peru and Colombia, who definitely can win a match at the World Cup. I mean, seriously, Chile's still not automatically qualifying. And CONCACAF gets 3 more teams. Now, I kind of get your point here. CONCACAF sucks, but Costa Rica doesn't, and they would automatically qualify, and then Panama would go, and then Jamaica would go. Who doesn't want the Reggae Boys to be there? And they're bad. But they're, you know, a lot more good teams than bad teams are being added to the World Cup by this expansion, as you're probably noticing so far. And then, of course, there's New Zealand from Oceania, because Oceania gets an automatic spot now, which means maybe someday, like the Solomon Islands will make it. But this qualifying cycle was not that day. Now, unfortunately, the Solomon Islands just didn't have a leg to stand on. But fortunately, I do, because of this great standing desk from Uplift. You might have noticed that in the last couple of videos, I've been standing. Well, that's because I got this awesome new desk a couple of months ago, and I am absolutely illiterate when it comes to building things and putting things together, but Uplift provides you an amazing array of options to configure your desk. You can go long, you can do it in an L like I did. They've got all these different kinds of mounts for my different kinds of monitors. They've got incredible storage units for cables that I just don't use, and this thing can go a lot higher. Look at that. Honestly, it's tremendously easy to put together, looks fantastic, and I can't say enough good things about Uplift. If you want to get your own Uplift desk, there's a link at the top of the description that I highly recommend that you click on. So check out Uplift, and thank you to them for sponsoring this video by sending me this super awesome desk, because it is awesome. Now, there's also an Intercontinental Playoff, which I think is neat, and the teams that would have made that are Chile, Iraq, Dr. Congo, El Salvador, Honduras, and the Solomon Islands. Now, Solomon Islands is obviously going to get beat like a drum in that, but, you know, 2 of those teams are going to make the World Cup, and that's fun for them. And it's a weird international playoff with 6 teams. You know, it's interpretive, it's artistic. The full point is, I think the majority of the teams that would have made this past World Cup, if it had been 48 teams, would have added more value instead of less value to the tournament. And even some of those less valuable teams like Jamaica would be excellent draws that would involve various parts of the world that aren't typically involved at the World Cup, like the Caribbean. And it's not like they're going to get blown out either. Take Jamaica, for example. They made the Gold Cup final twice over the last 8 years. Very competent team, just can't seem to put it together in qualifying. Or a team like Uzbekistan, for example. That's this flag in a country that's here on the map.
Hey, you're finally awake.
Uzbekistan has been within a point of qualifying for the World Cup 3 times over the last 4 qualifying cycles, and that would involve a whole new part of the world in the tournament. And if you're a point away like that, you absolutely can make the World Cup and hang. You don't have to stand obscure countries the way that I do to understand that involving different parts of the world in the tournament is not only going to provide the players already on that team more World Cup experience and high-level experience that's going to make them better players, it's going to create exposure to different parts of the world to help grow the game globally. Now, I know I sound like a freaking FIFA mouthpiece, and FIFA is literally only doing this for the money. I just think it's going to be an accidental side effect of them doing this for the money. And this brings me to my third point, that them adding more teams to the tournament means that however they set up the group stage, whether it's 3s or 4s with third place teams going through in 50% of circumstances, we're going to have an extra knockout round. And that's awesome. That's my entire third point. There are going to be 16 more knockout matches at the World Cup, no matter how they slice it. There will be a round of 32 before the round of 16, and that's more extra time, more last-second winners or equalizers, more penalty shootouts, and I get it. I am also a fan, and I'm losing my mind if I'm watching the United States have to go to a penalty shootout against freaking Zanzibar, which doesn't even exist anymore. But the vast majority of the time, you're not watching your own team, and you're hoping for entertainment and chaos, and an extra knockout round is going to provide that. 16 knockout matches? 16! That's more than the whole tournament has right now that's being added. Doubles the intensity, doubles the insanity at every World Cup. And if you're voting against that, I'm probably voting against you, although we can definitely get along anyways. So if you enjoyed this video, please do subscribe to the channel and check this out. I normally have a clever pitch for some other video to watch, but I will put an interesting video up there that you should totally watch. Definitely.